We were interviewing artists to do a residency, and one of the artists, amazing artist, and she said, I don't know, I got out of art school and I couldn't find the manual. No one would give me the manual on how to be a successful artist. What do I do? And I went, that's because there isn't one. You have to go and figure it out and write it yourself.
And no two people are the same, right? She could try to do your journey and not get anywhere, but you have to have your own journey and figure it out, unfortunately.
Totally.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, damn it.
It's a joy, but it is a process, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Bountiful Podcast, where we explore what it means to live a bountiful life. Today, I'm particularly thrilled to immerse myself in the world of art, exploring the depths of creativity, the joy of expressing oneself through various mediums, and the positive impact on art on our well-being and environment. Our guest today is Wellington-based artist Lynne Sandri. I own 3 of Lynne's paintings. Her work explores the beauty of nature, changing landscapes, time, generational differences, and the concept of home. Join us as we explore the wonders of art, its potential to transform our perspective on the world, and its role in creating a bountiful life. So, Lynne, welcome to the Bountiful Podcast. It's a privilege to have this time with you today, especially surrounded by the vibrant artistic atmosphere in Wellington. And for those of you listening at home, I have to share that we're sitting in Lynne's studio. As you can see, it is absolutely beautiful, bountiful, everything that I thought it would be, and probably so much more. What do you see?
Well, thank you for inviting me for a start, and it's so nice to be able to meet you after all this time. Like, we've only sort of communicated via emails and things, so it's like, hello. So, no, I'm loving you being here and being able to share it with you. So, thank you.
Yeah. Nice to meet you finally.
Yeah.
I thought of this question when I was thinking about what to ask you. I think you've had a really interesting background, and obviously you paint beautiful things every day and talk to fascinating people who obviously are looking to encapsulate memories or things that they have through the work that you do. So can you tell me how you see the world?
It's a big question, and I think that I believe that we're all connected, and that I'm probably a little bit unusual that I like collaborating with people. A lot of artists work on a solo basis, and they're like, don't tell me what to paint kind of thing. Like, that's why I'm an artist. And I'm like, actually, I've met some incredible people through my paintings and collaborations, and I think that's sometimes that pushes your work a little bit further, and sometimes you can get inside their head and you're sort of trying to interpret what it is that they would like. And I love that. And I do that in between exhibitions. So I'm not always working with people, but I like the balance of being able to, and it keeps me connected with people and it keeps it real. You know, art can be quite in another world, and you can block yourself off and become a bit of a hermit. And I find that when I'm working with people, it forces me out of that and allows me to get inside their head, and it gives me a break from mine. So, yeah.
My partner tells me that I have to go out of the house, off the land, move off the land,
Yes.
Go out, go to the gym, go see people, stop hermiting in the garden.
Get out there. Yeah. You start, your world closes down, and you need to remember what it is like out there, and also what's changing. I think just keeping up with what's going on, because sometimes you can become too small, even though it's glorious.
Glorious, but no, we don't want to be small.
Yes, exactly.
And then how do you see yourself?
Oh, I suppose always curious. I have a very curious mind, and I think that no matter how old we get, we never stop learning. And it's funny, I've been asked, when did you start learning about art, or when did you start learning about food or cooking, whatever? And I think it's, I think that your learning begins and it never ends. And that's how I'd like to see myself, as maybe just a living thing that is continue learning and growing. And by the end of my life, I'll be thoroughly used up.
There's a term that you used in somewhere that I read. It was like something curiosity.
A curious idealist.
Yes, that. Tell me about that.
Well, I find that a lot of my paintings that I create is all about the ideal. And so a lot of the gardens or the botanical work that I create, I haven't grown them, but ideally I'd love to have something like that. So sometimes my messages are, ideally this is how I'd love to see things. And the curious element of it allows me to dig deep or find out a little bit more about it so that I can create my idealism. So I'm always looking ahead and looking forward, and I try to see things sunny side up rather than the other way.
Glass full.
Yeah, glass full. We have a short life, and it's got to be a hell of a journey.
We've got to live it.
Yeah, let's just...
Do you know where I thought you were going to say with that? So I'm like, okay, every gardener's ideal garden has no weeds, it flowers full time, and is the perfect ideal of exactly how we want it to look. But that is like not the case most of the time.
Well, a lot of reference stuff, I've got a lot of photographs and a lot of reference things that I use, but you never have anything that's perfect. And a painting is never perfect either. There's always has to be a crack or a flaw in it, so that, nothing is perfect, but ideally it's you're portraying it at their best, I suppose.
Maybe you should do an ode to the weeds.
An ode to the... Well, what is it? A flower or a weed is just a flower that has judgment, right? To us, that's a different ruler.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's profound. Digging deeper, so what does it mean to you to live a bountiful life?
For me, bountiful is about abundance and about bounty, about finding things, being a sponge and absorbing things, and then looking at what's around you, bringing that in, and then whatever your medium you choose to live life by. Like, I think that everybody is an artist in some description. Like, they are either they can be a painter, a musician, a dancer, a writer, a photographer. We've all got the thing that we capture or we make or think about or strategize about, and it's just a different medium in which we live by and create by. So I think that the bountiful element is being able to source all that stuff that's going to allow you to make what you do and to live happily with it, I suppose.
When we were first talking about bountiful and like bounty, it makes me think of pirates and like going for the treasure bounty. But then I guess treasure is not necessarily like the gold, and it's not the pirate. Like, I might be the pirate, but my bounty might be like love or abundance or freedom or the ability to learn or having like market garden or being able to cook, those sorts of things. And so, I think that's like the pirate's bounty is like our different forms of treasure, I think is what I'm trying to say.
We're all foragers, right? You said you were talking about foraging, and I think that we just forage for different things that will help allow us to absorb it, and then out of us something grows. Well, I suppose we're like compost heaps in a way, out of you're gathering all sorts of information and ideas, and out of it new ideas grow,
There's I'm not going to ask it, but it's an interesting, I'm like, what is the worms of our compost heap then? Is it like the blood in our veins? I don't know.
I don't know. It could be.
That'd be a good painting, actually. What advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
A lot of things, probably. Just not to give up and to have some confidence. I think that I watch my own daughter, who's 25, watching how she's sort of getting on in the world, and then I sort of have it sort of talking to lots of different people. I sort of figured that everyone's trying to figure themselves out, and we're all busy doing that. And I sort of thought that, as I got older, I would have figured it out. And I realised that you don't need to. Like, we're constantly changing and growing and learning, and it's okay not to have it all figured out. So, I suppose it's just have confidence that what you're doing is the right thing, and that live life by your own ruler, not by others. And especially as an artist, you are judged every day on what you're making. It's like music. Some people will like a particular song, some may only like a particular album that you've done, and it's the same with art. And I think that now, the longer I've done it, the more I realise that's what it's all about, and that it's okay. You spend so long trying to figure it out, and you just got to be okay with it. So that would be my advice to myself. If I could sit down with myself at 20, or 25.
I think this is almost what is at the crux of living a bountiful life. It's like, for the majority of people, the impact that they have on the world is going to be like quite small. And so therefore, and like people probably won't remember you beyond like a few generations.
Yeah.
And so then the duty to your life and you is actually how you live it, how you choose to live it. And I think if we spent less time pondering what matters to everyone else in the world and more time pondering what matters to us, and like living a good life in the time that we have, which is actually really short if we think about it. I wonder if we'd actually be a lot happier as
right
people.
Now. Yeah. We do I find I overthink things, and sometimes you can get, what's that term, paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
And it's like, what if I, and now I'd go, my new motto I live by is, the only way to do it is to do it.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of fix the mistakes later. But if you're actually not doing it, you got nothing to fix.
Yeah, just start.
Yeah, get on with it. And, how many summers do you think you've got? Like,
not that many, actually.
Exactly.
What sparked your interest in art in your creative pursuits?
I think, looking back, I've been drawing since I was about 5, and I started in the schoolyard. I watched this other girl called Tony, and I remember her name, and she had this in the old days, an autograph book, and in it were sketches, and she could draw the best horses ever. Like they were incredible. And I remember her opening up, and she'd always be sketching, and I'm thinking, I want to draw like that. So we became friends, and she taught me how to draw horses. And to this day, I can still draw. The hardest bit of a horse is actually the hind leg. And a bit of useful information there. But I've never stopped drawing since. So I think it was a habit for me to kind of hang out with this girl and we become friends. We both sketched, and to this day, I've got a million sketchbooks. I always have paper and a pen nearby, and I'm always writing down and sketching things. And I think that, so my pursuits have been part of it in me for a long time, and I've never stopped. But I had that whole challenge of,
art's not a real career.
Not a real job. And save that for your hobby, Lynn.
Yeah.
Go get yourself a real job. And I did. I spent 15 years in the corporate environment, and which was great. And I wouldn't change things, because it taught me all about business and marketing, and the fact that as an individual, as an artist, unless you want to pay a gallery 40 to 50% of whatever you earn or whatever you paint, which is unsustainable with most cases, you have to work it out. And I believe that someone said to me, art is actually show business. It's all about show business. You have to make the world work to be able to show it, and then you got to do the business element to actually make sure that you can sustain it and make and pay your mortgage. And materials are super expensive, and I like that. It's show business, and it is. You've got to have both, and you've got to balance both to be able to make sure that it's sustainable and you can keep on. I want to do this till I'm, 100.
Can no longer see anymore.
Yeah, exactly, until my goggles on my face are so thick that or, I've got arthritis or whatever. But so far, so good. So.
Yeah. The corporate you, dare I say it, Did you have a lot of us do things that we know is not like our calling or the thing that we, they say that whole like do the work that's not actually work, where you get out of bed and it's not work because you just enjoy it so much. Yeah. When you were doing your corporate stuff, did you have a sense, like, did you have almost like a dullness there, like in terms of your happiness because you knew that you actually wanted to be creating, or did it take you a while to arrive at the conclusion that you wanted to be an artist full time and could be?
That's such a good question. I found that when I was working, what I kept on questioning was, am I making a difference? Like, will the doors of this place open the next day with or without me? And I found I was working 80% of, and
the grind.
Well, I believe that if you're going to show up, you show up and you give it everything. And I gave it everything. But at the end of the day, I kind of went, what difference am I making? I might have, I was in training and development and HR and all about people. And I knew that I was helping and affecting some people's lives. But at the end of the day, they'd go off to their next whatever. And I just kind of went, I think that the doors will open without me. And I'd been going, doing art school at nights, and, I was even doing exhibitions while trying to work. And so every moment of the day was consumed with trying to juggle both. And I tried to do a bit of an MBA, and I tried to do a whole lot of stuff. And then actually sometimes things point in the direction. I had a exhibition. I took 3 months sabbatical, and after working 15 years, and I did an exhibition and it sold out, and I had commissions booked, and I kind of went, if you're not going to take notice now, then you never will. And that was when, that was in 1994. So, and then I started my journey of making it into a job, and not as a hobby, but to actually sustain it. And it took a while, but now it is sustainable, and I can change and evolve and move things as I want it now with the knowledge that I have. But still, everything's changing, right? You've got to keep evolving as an artist and as a small business owner. You've got to keep evolving with your artwork and not be, it's dynamic. It's not static.
Are there any other moments where the universe talked to you and you listened or didn't listen?
Little things like messages. I remember my parents would come to my exhibitions, and I didn't realise just how much of their influence they had on me, and also how the more you paint, the more of what you do, the more you realise who you are. And as I was painting more and more different series of works about time and home and generational differences and gardens and things that you grow around them, I was going, oh, here's my grandmother, here's my mother. My father came in and he said, why do I know all this subject? Like, they're our houses that you've got in those jars. This is our life. And I was thinking, and I said, Dad, this is all about my life, and this is who I am. And it was that's that realization, because I'm lucky my work allows me to do it visually. And, whether you're a writer or a photographer or whatever you're doing, only so many, a small audience will only see a little bit of it. Whereas when you're an artist, everyone gets to see inside your brain because it's right there for the take.
Yeah.
So
I found myself on a sabbatical this year, went to Oxford, studied creative writing, and kind of similar, where they say the story that's meant to come out of your pen, it will, whether you like it or not. Yeah. Probably the same with a paintbrush. You kind of just got to go with it. Ended up, writing stories about my childhood where I was like, oh, okay, I didn't think I needed to go there. Clearly I did. And then the universe was like, I think building me up to this point where the combination of everything I've done in my life, like personally, professionally, trauma, everything that's gone into it, has kind of led me to being here today. which is kind of wild to me. But there's I think a lesson in there that like you have to be prepared to listen to what the universe has to say, because it will show you like it's cheesy, but it will show you the right path, I think, if you pay attention. Yeah.
And realize that it is everything that you're doing is usable.
Yeah. True. Yep.
Everything you've learnt so far, like some people say, you know, everything you've done before this, was it a waste of time? No. Heck no. You know, you've used it in everything that you've done, and now it's,
So tell me more about the experiences, maybe specifically the childhood experiences that you think have sort of shaped you and like maybe what you're creating.
I think for example, my dad is a builder, so a maker, and my mum is a dressmaker, both makers, and they taught me a lot about whatever you do, just work really hard, and they're really hard workers. And in the weekends, when we're all together, we used to go to the galleries, you know, because they were free at the Auckland City Art Gallery. And there was a red line, you know, don't stand, don't touch. And these precious objects were behind this red line. And I remember thinking, if I ever can do something, I want to make sure that people can touch what you've got. So hence the textural series came. So I've got a series of work where I just plowed on, you know, like 20 layers of paint, and they're so delicious, and they're varnished so that you can touch them.
Right.
So that, you know, that was a direct correlation to not being able to feel the paint, because there's something about oil paints that are just yum. They're delicious.
And then why flowers and flora and fauna? And
it was when my grandmother, you know, would give me dahlia tubers, and Mum would come in and dig them in. And I'm thinking, what's with all this? I would love the gardens, and they'd look at roses and they'd look at the sculpture part of this, and I'm like, I'm just not getting it, you know. And then something in me, it switched, and I started to look at the colours and see the shapes of them. I've never painted people, only because I think photography does that beautifully. I'd rather do more of a still life and look at gardens from an idealist. And there's so much colour. And have you ever heard of biophilia? Biophilia is all about how nature affects your well-being.
Okay.
So it's like the Japanese have a thing called forest bathing, where they, you know, people are so trapped in their day-to-day work, they send them out to the forest to bathe in the positive ions or negative ions. So it gives you a natural dopamine hit. Yeah. So biophilia is actually when you create there's a whole lot of research done, and I've looked at all the writers and researchers around it, and it's clinically proven that if you've got nature around you, or even images of nature, it lifts your spirit, reduces your stress, you know, it gives you better health. So that's hence the reason why probably the last 10 to 15 years of my body of work, I've moved more towards botanicals and getting them as big as I can with big floor-to-ceiling paintings, and so that you're right in them in the environment. And I've shifted more into that rather than the storytelling narrative that I've had about home. But it still is within that boundary of home, because we create the boundaries around us with our gardens.
My granddad was an orchid orchardist. Yeah, had an orchid orchard in like the 80s and 90s, which to me just feels like so long ago. And I remember, I think I was about 5, and we were in the orchard. It's under a glass house in like Caddy, so in Bay of Plenty. And he's like, hey, can you please help me put these flowers in these tubes? I was like, Granddad, like, why are we putting individual stems in these tubes? He's like, well, I'm sending them to Japan. I was like, but Granddad, where's Japan? And he's like, oh, well, it's, you know, a country, and it's, you know, probably north from here. I was like, oh, okay. But how do you send them overseas? And like, why would people in Japan want these orchids? And he's like, well, it's called exporting. I was like, but what's exporting? I've always been a why person.
So many questions.
And he's like, well, people want things that I have to sell, and so I'm sending them to Japan because people want, and that's why I think one of my first memories of like business and trade and flowers. And so I think I've just absolutely adored flowers. And Dad was actually, his first job was as a commercial photographer. And he had this amazing photo of this rose that he took. And I think ever since then, I've just been in love with flowers, which hence I get to look at your lovely painting every day, which is so nice. Can you tell me about the moment where you decided to bottle precious moments in jars? What was the like moment where you're like, I'm going to put a series in a set of jars?
My mum's a preserver, her mother before her, and so forth. And in the heat of summer, why they used to preserve in the heat of summer, we did the apricot thing. And she said, I've got to teach you how to preserve. So we slaved away in the kitchen doing the preserves, and we made these beautiful golden, and we did golden peaches as well. And, you know, sticky, messy, hot. And at the very end of it was this beautiful jar of precious ingredients that when you took the lid off, when they were out of season, you took the lid off and you were right there. And I just remember taking, you know, preserving it, and then I've got a jar there, and she taught me it, and she said, oh, thank goodness, I've passed it on. And like, what? I had to teach you. It was my job to pass it on to you. And I'm like, huh? And I love that the whole generational thing that was passed on from, you know, grandmother to mother to daughter, and that we were creating something that was going to be made for another time. Whereas everything is so like, let's have that now. I'm impatient. If I want it now. Why can't asparagus be, you know, all year? And you got to wait, you know. Nature teaches us that you have to be patient, and I love that whole element of taking the lid off, and you were there for that moment. And then I started doing a whole lot of series, and I did a few artists in residence at different, like Scots College, and it seemed to be a subject or a content that they could really understand it about the preservation of time and what was precious. So it's been a series that has continued to grow, and still I do a lot of commissions around it. So it seems to strike a chord.
So many of your paintings explore the cyclical nature of life and time. How do you think that contributes to a deeper understanding of joy and bountiful living?
I think that what comes around goes around, and we notice it with seasons, and especially with botanicals. And I walk every morning, and I find that on the same journey that I take, the one thing I do notice is that everything's always changing. And I think that if you can notice those things and cycles, I think everything runs in cycles. The element of bountifulness is all about cycles and change and seasons, and you know, that can be applied for friendships. You know, sometimes they're seasonal. The way you're feeling about things, music, themes, series, everything has a cycle. Yeah. And it's just being aware of it and noticing it.
I do like that reason, season, or a lifetime kind of mantra.
Yeah. It's so true, right?
Yeah. Your work also often explores the concept of home and challenges the idea of the Quarter-Acre Dream, which as New Zealanders, that's what we've grown up with, you know, having
ideally
being an idealist, having a house and a Quarter-Acre Dream, and probably, you know, married and some kids or something. I think the whole nature of this has been challenged a lot.
Yay.
So tell me more about like why you have not a problem, but like why you like challenging this whole kind of concept.
It's the quarter-acre section or backyard lawn is a reoccurring motif in my work, and has been for 20 years. And first of all, it was about the natural stages that we were conditioned that we needed to go through, which was have a career, have a mortgage, get married, have children, have 2 children, blah, 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 until you die. And thank goodness that is now completely smashed. And because my mum and dad had kind of said, as a builder, the best thing that you could do is get yourself a mortgage, get yourself a piece of land to call your own, to grow and create, and then you've made it, you're successful. But they forgot to tell me about the eye-watering mortgage that would be kind of around your neck for all of that time. And now we have a daughter, Brianna, and who's 25, and I'm watching her change, and her notion of the Quarter-Acre Dream is just, it's a myth. It's now a myth. And I find it funny that we grew up with that notion that was the measure of success. And that's why I paint a lot of lawn and a lot of the ideal piece of, like a trophy in a sense, that you've gone out to the backyard and you have cut out a section of what you might or may not own, or a little bit of it, and you've said, mine. And you've put it on the wall, and that's your, whether it's to the stages of life, or I don't need to do this. And it's, I say to her, are you gonna have a Quarter-Acre Dream? Are you gonna have a piece of land? She's like, are you kidding me? $1 million mortgage? I don't think so. That will cripple them. So it is time, home, generational different. It's all that thing. And I realised that the Quarter-Acre Dream, or my backyard lawn, is very much part of me and how I grew up, and the myths that was inlaid in me. But also, we do have a really great piece of grass. It's a little dried up at the moment, sadly, much to my husband's disgust, because when he gets out there with his motor mower, and it's a petrol one, he gets this funny look on his face, and he mows the lawn, and he's like, yes, super pride, it's tended my garden, and the lawn is done, and then he turns there's that beautiful smell. There's the puff of the smoke and the smell of freshly cut grass, and he just sits back and then he'll sprinkle it with stuff to make it more greener, and he'll go down and he'll get rid of all the like
grass enthusiast.
Yeah. He loves his grass, and sometimes people come over and go when it's in a good thing. It's so spongy, it's beautiful, and we've lain on it. He's like, that's mine, that's mine. And sometimes when I finish work, the sun comes in the back, and the cats and the birds, and there's so much life that goes on really quietly in the backyard. So the lawn has a lot. There's a lot of reason, and there's a lot of stories, and it's very, very dear to my heart. That's why that really big lawn is in my front entrance, to remind me we've got a bit of land, luckily, to call our own. So
yeah, I think this coming generation has and you see it in the workplace, I think it's more prevalent there, but what they're willing to accept and not accept in terms of like being holistically them has changed a lot. Whereas I think before, like, we do jobs that we didn't necessarily love, but because we had to pay a mortgage, or we would work overtime because of how the corporations are set up, and right and wrong, and what you were told was the right way of being like an operator. Whereas young people are now like, that's so stupid. Like, I want to hang out with my friends. I'm not doing your work that you've given
we don't need
to me at 5 p.m. on a Friday. Like, I have a life. Like, value me.
It's and it lasts. Like, it's the norms have been challenged.
Yeah.
And I sort of foolishly sometimes I think, why didn't we challenge them back then? Why did we go along with that? And I
think it presents a different challenge though, because then it brings to the forefront that, like, well, figuring out what matters to you and how you want to spend your time, what's important to you, and how you're going to make money. Because unfortunately we still live in a world that requires currency.
Adult about it.
But I think I do wonder, like, what's the impact of, like, okay, if we're not chasing the Quarter-Acre Dream, you have to then figure out what matters to you. Is that whole like purpose and contribution question actually that much harder than the prescriptive, like you must do blah, 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 blah?
I think that if you have bought into the stages that you think that we all needed to be, and that ruler that we measured ourselves by, then you're never happy. And that's what I've learnt, if we have long I've been here, and starting to appreciate, is that you don't have to. You just have to. It's like the work that I do, we're always challenging imposter syndrome, and we're always wondering whether someone will like it, or, but you actually have, if you're not happy with it yourself, it's like creating a beautiful meal. Who is the woman? I adore her. She was on television, and she was a fantastic Julia, and she would go
Julia Childs,
and she said, never apologise for that you're putting a beautiful meal on the table, or say whatever, because you worked hard to do it, you know it was good, and you did your very best. And I love that. It's like, don't apologise, show up, give it everything, and then be happy yourself. I mean, I know that's easy to say and hard to do, because I find, but that's what how I'm trying to live.
To the budding, aspiring artists, might get into some of those things. In your early years as a painter, what were some of the valuable lessons or insights that you wish someone had shared with you?
Technically, for an artist, just understand light and dark, understand how colour, the psychology of colour and the effects that it has on your mind and how it makes you feel, and research it and get to know it. Colour mixing, and also experiment. Like the amount of things I've tried, when someone said, no, you can't do that, it'll fall off, it'll wrinkle, or whatever, and I'm like, actually, I'm going to shot, and realise that actually just because it hasn't been done. So you can whack on a certain amount, but you have to follow an alchemy. There's a science behind it, and you need to know what it is and try it out, come back to it 10 years later, see if it's worked. Things take time. So if I was talking to a younger artist, and I mentor a lot of artists and do a lot of coaching and blah, blah, blah. And one thing I found that people are now more, and I speak for myself, is that we're very impatient. And I think that when an artist does their first exhibition, they're like, why didn't I sell out? What happened? Where did I go wrong? Oh, I'm giving up. That's way too hard. And for me, it would be to say to any aspiring artists or new into their career, don't give up. Stick with it. Keep going. And, roll with the punches. And, just don't give up. Keep going. Be resilient. Yeah. There's one thing that you can learn is resilience, because it'll come to you eventually. But it just, damn, it takes time.
Just got to give it a good innings.
Yeah, and get on with it. Make it happen.
Tell me about your experimentation. Now, I'm one of the things I'm picturing. I'm like, I wonder if you can put grass on a canvas mixed in with your oil paints, and if that would be a fascinating thing to try, or just be like super weird.
No, I've done that. In the lounge, I've got 2 paintings that have been described as ugly but beautiful. And I'm thinking, is that a compliment? But in it is the first, I did a series about chamomile lawn, things that you could stand on. And in it, I put a whole lot of plastic, because if you put grass in, it'll rot, and the moisture will separate it from the ingredients of the paint. Yeah. So it will never dry. But I put a whole lot of plastic stuff inside it, and little flowers that had been embroidered, and then built and painted those up. And then I used pumice and sticks, dipped them in acrylics, got really messy, and then just did layers and layers and layers. And it's still, the paintings are about 20 plus years old, and they still worked. And that's how my textural series started. So I kind of went, instead of putting stuff in it, and people for centuries have put sand and dirt and ashes into paint, anything they can kind of build up, tissues, fabric, whatever. But it's actually, I found that the best thing is actually the same product, but many layers. So there's a alchemy that you've got to do.
Yeah.
Oils, fat over lean. So lean layers and then your fattest layers so that it doesn't turn into a raisin or a wrinkle. So you follow a few laws and then you push them and see how far you can take them until they do go. I mean, there's many a scraping of blobs that have not stayed on the canvas and ended up on here. But, if you don't try. And I think I'm lucky enough to do this every day full-time for the last 25 years plus. I need to push things, and try things out.
So how do you balance the business side with the joy of creating?
Very difficultly. There's a nagging part of you in the back of your mind that's always like, how am I going to pay for this? 3 months ahead, 6 months ahead, you've always got to be, I'm not very good at being spontaneous, and I do have a plan, usually sort of about a year out in terms of what I'm doing, and with the amount of commissions I work on, I always have to be working ahead with and someone will say, oh, we'll just do one of those. I'm thinking, no, it needs to be locked in, it needs to be ordered because you'll lose your place. There is an element of business that you have to work with, or A, you never get things done, and B, you can't afford to get things done. So I have got a business background, but also I'm always learning, like in terms of the social media and Instagram and just exploring different ways of doing it, and I can always be doing things. It's like AI, I'm thinking, I need to know about this, and I've used it quite a bit with respect to all sorts of things. But if you don't think it applies to you, then you miss the bus. So, like I said, show business, you need both. And it is a struggle, and I do a lot of paperwork at night. I'm very lucky my daughter is now a chartered accountant. Yeah. And my husband is fantastic. He helps me with my website. Yeah. So we can do all that kind of stuff together, and I keep him very well fed.
Do you have moments, because I have these sometimes, where you wake up and yesterday I was just not motivated at all, but I wasn't anywhere where I was creative or inspired. And when I'm doing podcast questions, I really want to get deep into them, as you've seen. And I want to explore someone's soul, not just hey, give me your advice, or surface, perfect word. So today I went and sat in a cafe that was so noisy, and then I just went into my nirvana. What do you do when you wake up and you just have that, your brain's being defiant and it's I don't want to paint today, or I don't want to open my computer, I don't want to do emails, I know I need to email that client, but I don't want to. Do you have those moments?
All the time. And I think it's usually from lack of sleep, because I'm a terrible sleeper, because my brain is on all the time, and it's like a movie that keeps on running, so it forgets to switch off. But if I am suffering a bit, I do start every morning with a walk or a swim, and I don't wear headphones. I try to go by myself. I've got a number of people I exercise with for different things, or at the gym, or I'm with a group that swims and things. But actually I find if I'm in that, and every painting has a life cycle, right? It begins and it's whoa, this is amazing. It's going to be so fantastic. And then you start working on it and you've got it on, and then it's awful. It's like a really hormonal teenager, yeah. And it just bites back at you, and you go, I don't know how I'm going to resolve this. And then all of a sudden, you're thinking about it and you make it work, and then it gets to a point that you're happy with it. And I think that the days when you wake up like that, and I find that I just go back to nature. I go for a walk, go for a swim, or go to a gallery. I find, you went into a busy cafe and you were able to shut out, but there was an energy probably around you. And I find that I can just go into a place and just escape into someone else's work, or I listen to a podcast. Like, I've got a number of podcasts I listen to. There's a woman in Auckland who does one called Creative Matters, and she interviews artists. She's brilliant. And just their stories. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, I was feeling that. Oh, what? And they did, yep. And it just gives you a little shunt. TED Talks, How to Fail, Elizabeth Day. There's Art Juice. Sometimes I'll listen to national programming as I'm working, and there'll be something going on, and I'm thinking, just need and so I'll turn my podcast on loud, awesome, great music, and that just sometimes gives myself a good talking to.
Can you tell me about a specific technique or approach that's been particularly impactful for your art, I guess at a technical level?
One that I always go back to is actually the one little thing in the corner, and it's just a wee box, and it's probably the greatest tool I've referred to when I've been coaching people, and that is your primary and secondary colours and the way that complementary colours work, how you darken colours. That's probably the easiest, simplest tool. If people can master primary, secondary colours and understand complementary colours, that's, kind of 101. And anything in terms of technical, I just understand the alchemy of your oil paints. There are different colour ranges for different brands,
right.
And I use Winsor & Newton because they're just like delicious butter. They're like colourful butter. It's like I remember being introduced to them, and the woman at Gordon Harris, it wasn't Gordon Harris then, it was 1,000 years ago, but she said, these are the Rolls Royce oil paints, Lynne. And I'm like, yeah. And Rolls Royce was a really good brand. and I said, yeah, okay. And then I did this. I used these two blues. It was Prussian blue and ultramarine blue, and I did it on a big canvas, and it was like someone had whacked me in the chest. It was so beautiful, and it really, colour. There is a psychology of colour, and although green is my favourite colour, I was working with these blues, and I instantly went, I get it. I get oil paints. So I suppose it's invest in the best you can buy, and the colour and the longevity of it will it's like use your best ingredients, right? Use the best one if you're doing whatever is the foundation of what you're doing. Use the best, because you'll be damn annoyed if it doesn't work out. And I suppose that's the mode I live by, is get the best that you can, and you'll get a better colour palette, and understand the alchemy behind it so that you can understand it, and then you can push it.
Yeah, I like that. For someone starting their artistic journey, where would you recommend they begin, apart from just starting?
Oh, well, learn all your technical stuff and be forever drawing, but be taught by something. Like, there's some great courses, but get your technical side of things before you begin experimenting, because once you've nailed the technical, then you can experiment as much as you like. But if you skip that step, you don't know what's gone wrong. Yep. Then I would go to a library, and I would pick every book that sings to you, big ones, yep, and go visual depending on the way you're wired. I need a lot of pictures. And also listen to podcasts, take out your favourite artists for coffee. Don't expect they're going to give you days and days of their time, but, just say, I love the practice. Can I see your studio? Can I ask you some questions? And then remember to say thank you. I remember I was on the board of the New Zealand Art Show when I was on there about 10 years. And I remember we were interviewing artists to do a residency, and one of the artists, amazing artist, and she said, oh, I don't know, I got out of art school and I couldn't find the manual. No one would give me the manual on how to be a successful artist. Where is it? What do I do? What do I do? And I went, that's because there isn't one. You have to go and figure it out and write it yourself. And no one is going to give you that those answers.
And no two people are the same, right? She could try to do your journey and not get anywhere, but you have to have your own journey and figure it out, unfortunately.
Totally.
Yeah. Unfortunately. It's a joy, but it is a process, right?
Yeah.
Any words for someone transitioning from aspiring artist to full-time painter?
Don't give up. Don't give up. Keep going. Even if there is a show that doesn't quite work out or paintings that don't work out, keep resilience. Yeah. Develop resilience and keep at it, because that whole thing, the only way to do it is to do it. And yeah.
Any advice for letting go and allowing yourself to be the artist that you are?
We're sensitive creatures, right? I think that as artists, whether it's music or whatever medium you choose, to be an artist, it's our job to be sensitive and more aware of things. And people sometimes question your overthinking and detail or attention to detail or not. And yeah, I suppose it doesn't matter. Just be you. And that's my advice to someone who's aspiring to do it. Don't wait too long.
Scratch the itch.
Get on with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Turning to mental health, so you spend a lot of time by yourself. What goes through your mind in the solitary moments?
I'm an extroverted introvert, and what goes through my mind, mostly images, and I just play. How could that look? When you're looking at anything, you're always going, how could that look in paint? How could I, you're always narrowing, zooming in, or looking at things. It's like, oh, didn't see that yesterday. I don't get bored. I think that I'm very busy in my head, and so my mental health is more. We've got a very, very old spa pool. In fact, it's just like an old bath. But sometimes late at night, I just go and look at the stars and think, I'll go, how can I fix this? How can I put this in? Why isn't that painting working? What can I do next? What do I have to resolve? And I resolve a lot of things like that, or I just go for a walk. So, yeah.
Tell me about your swimming. Is it so you swim every day of the year? And for context, for anyone watching at home or wherever you are, New Zealand's cold, like a lot of the year, right? Like kind of like 10 degrees type sea temperatures, maybe even colder, especially where I live. Is it a form of meditation or mental fortitude, or what's going on there?
I try to get in the water as much as I can, because I feel really grateful to live in paradise. Like we're really lucky to live where we live, and if I'm not using it, then that's my problem. Like I go swimming because it makes all your senses come alive. But I'll try to walk or have a run or do something first, and then jump in on what I'm wearing, and then I'll drip home, because I tend to go at the end of my street, and then I can drip through the house and jump in the shower, and I'm done, and that's my morning. And it's good. It wakes you up.
There's a great analogy or metaphor in there. It's like she's the epitome of a dripping canvas.
Yes.
What advice do you give those who are seeking to infuse their life with more joy? Maybe they don't have creative expression or a creative outlet, or they are creative but they haven't figured it out yet. What's the best way to get creativity and beauty in your life?
I think joy and beauty is different for everybody, and I suppose it's just give yourself the time to find it, or be in the place to find it. I know you just looking at some of your Instagram, that what you're surrounding yourself with, noticing the bees to the flowers to the growing your own, you're finding your own joy. And I think that everybody has something that they deep down love to do, but just don't get enough time to do it. And we suppress it. It's like my dad always said, get yourself a real job, because you never got make a living as an artist. And I love it. It's really neat. But I think that don't be held back by other people's perceptions. And yeah, if there is something in you that needs to be sung, well, you find your voice eventually with a bit of skill and training. And you know, how much did you know about growing vegetables and the right soil combinations?
I didn't.
And yeah, but you learn, right?
I still don't.
Yeah, but I look at some of your Instagram things and I'm going, you're just having a good time. Like that mandarin ginger cocktail. And then you banged it down. It's like, here you go. And I'm thinking, I think you've just found your joy. Like there's that. It's like me when I'm busy playing with colour. My heart is singing. It's just, you know, you want to explode. It's really good. I mean, it's not like that every day, but most days, if it's working, and if you do enough of it, it starts to work.
I like to say that, like, for those kind of moments in life, like, give yourself a predefined period of, like, the wallow. Yeah. So wallow for a predefined period of time, and then, like, then the wallow's done. You got to get on with it.
Yeah. Have a good cry. Yeah, get it out. And life isn't, champagne and flowers all the time. There are in no one's life, but I suppose it's the way that it's your perspective, right? It's the way you see things, and it's your choice. It's like, why not? Life should be champagne and flowers. I know. I kind of like it when it is, but and I've got some champagne in the fridge ready for us, and I've made some really yummy things for us to munch on if you've got time, but. It's about attitude, right? It's all about perspective.
Totally agree. So we're getting to the fun stuff. So you are self-professed, well, it's all been fun, but even more fun. You're a self-professed lifelong learner. Yeah. What's the latest thing that you've learned?
I learned that Christmas trees take a long time to put up, and that whoever does do Christmassy things should be saluted. And I've just done I think I mentioned the judging of the Christmas trees at the airport, and you can put anything on a tree. And you're talking about flowers put on a tree, and I think that it's a little bit like life is a bit like a Christmas tree. You don't have to put all the same old decorations up. You can change it up no matter what. So maybe that's my thought for the last week. I saw everything from, massive big peonies being put into trees to, someone making them out of wood and then cutting holes in them and then, sticking old sneakers on them. Like you can decorate a tree and you can decorate your life. Yeah. You don't have to go with the store-bought decorations. It's like, actually, they're more interesting when they're not.
I love that. It's a really good analogy in there somewhere around, like, live the life you're meant to live. Don't buy the one that's been, like, that's on the shelf for you. Like, don't buy the prophesized life, buy the life that you actually want.
Yeah, exactly. And it's seasonal.
True. Okay, quick fire questions.
Yep.
Now these are fun. What, in your opinion, is the most underrated fruit or vegetable?
Pomegranate. I think they're underrated because they're little gems and they're the most beautiful, delicious, and sometimes when you buy them, they're a bit off. So I think they're underrated and they can be used on everything, sweet and savoury.
Actually, I have a pomegranate molasses that I need to put in a cocktail because it's so good. Favourite cocktail?
I'm a bit of a wine girl, and but if I did have it, so I tend to go bubbles, or I like the big old-fashioned Californian Chardonnays because I just think they're like eating a roast. They're just so big and beautiful. So cocktails I tend to avoid because I'm greedy and I'll drink them really quickly and end up falling on the floor really quickly. But if I did, it would probably be a G&T and with really good, tonic.
Yep, can't go wrong with that. Yeah. Worst meal that your parents made you eat?
My dad was a really good fisherman as well, and they made me a fish head soup.
Oh, no.
And I was a kid, and I came into the driveway and I could smell it from the letterbox, lost my lunch outside. and then came in and, what's for dinner? Fish soup. Ooh, it was the most putrid, awful, revolting, and I now don't eat seafood because of that smell. If I am near that smell, I actually feel...
You bristle.
Ooh, yeah, but that's the only thing I don't eat.
That's sad.
I know, but isn't that weird that it stays with you, and I can smell fish 200 kilometres away. It's like, yeah.
Wow. Most spontaneous thing you've ever done?
We were in Queenstown, and I was with Graham and Brianna, and we went to the top of the gondola, and they were paragliding, and there wasn't a queue, and I'd always looked at the, flicking down, look at that view, and we were already there, and usually it's like $1 billion, and usually you've got to wait, or it's a whole day thing, and I sort of said to Graham and Brianna, I really want to do that. Could you just give me a minute? And so I ran up and I said, how long's the queue? 10 minutes. Can I go now? Yep. How much is it? It's minimal. Yep. And I turned around and I said, I'm going in 10 minutes. I'm going to do this. And Brianna and Graham, Brianna said, she could die. And Graham went, oh. And I went, I don't care, I'm doing it. And went, and it was amazing. It was so beautiful, and they met me at the bottom. It was great.
I have paraglided off Triple Cone, and so I really love all that stuff. I'm not a daredevil, but I do believe in just like living life, trying things once, like seeing I love flight. Flight's like one of my things, and there's something quite surreal around like running off a mountain, literally, and like floating.
Yes. And being this close to death.
Yeah.
If it goes wrong. And sometimes that can make you live harder, right? Live.
Don't really have that bone in my body. Like I have this like weird optimistic trait where I'm like, things can't fail. Like I obviously know that they can, but I just don't believe that it will. And dying, like of course I'm not going to die. Like it'll all be fine.
Good. And do it spectacularly.
Yep.
So
word that describes your life?
Joyful.
Knew you were going to choose that one.
The whole feeling of joy, and I love that word. Like whenever you hear it, they say that there's words that that make people feel or whatever. And whenever I hear the word joy or joyful, it always makes me feel really happy. Yeah.
If you were going to describe your artistic journey in one word, would you choose a different one?
Can I have 3 words?
Sure.
I had a little bit of a thought about this, and I sort of said to Graham, oh, what about, and I said, no, I've got to have never-ending story.
Yeah.
Because I think that, I think that it's only over when it's over.
What legacy do you aspire to leave behind as an artist?
Maybe to have brought a bit of joy into people's lives. Like, I've had some really beautiful reactions to my work, and I find that really moving. So sometimes when people are emotional, I think my job is done. Mm-hmm. It's like, to have that, to know that you're doing that as your work, it gives me great joy and satisfaction, I suppose. I feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing, and I feel like I'm on track. It's the track keeps on moving, but I feel like I'm on the right one, not going, I wish I could do this. It's like I'm doing it. It feels good.
How cool is that to say?
It does. It is good. So whenever I'm used up, there'll be a little bit of visual stuff of mine left, and hopefully people, we're all just caretakers of art. So yeah, hopefully it'll bring some joy to people.
Well, I can tell you what, you bring us joy every day in our house, so that's lovely. What's your final piece of artistic advice that you have?
The only way to do it is to do it, and that is I suppose that's my saying for the month. I listened to a podcast and a woman was talking about it, and I've just helped an artist have her first exhibition, and she did the most beautiful exhibition. And I said to her, the only way to do it is to do it, and you've just done it. And I've never seen, it's like she'd been given an injection of something fantastic. And she's just blossomed and bloomed, and I just went, that's what it's all about. You've got to just do it, And not just do it, but stop talking about it. You're getting on with it. You're getting on with it. There's so many people who sit around talking about it, and I listen to the talking about it, and it's just like, stop talking about it.
Yeah. That was actually one of the biggest things that made a difference with Bountiful, was getting outside and filming content and then putting it together, and you would know this, and just putting it out there into the world. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you just and then the momentum kind of builds itself, and then you learn as you go.
You can't edit what you haven't done. Yeah. And you can, once you've made it, you can fix it and then correct it. But if you're paralyzed by not doing it, you can't fix it. And that must be you must go through so much material and information, but you can edit it.
Yeah, it's true. And on that note, we've done it.
We've done it.
So I have to say thank you, Lynne, for gracing the Bountiful podcast with your profound insights and presence, and obviously in your glorious studio. As you know, I'm a big lover of flowers and jars, and I'm deeply nostalgic. So, I love everything about this. I think it's been great to explore the depths of creativity and your story. And I think our audience will be richer for your presence today.
Thank you. Well, thank you for looking into the porthole of my mind and being interested. It's lovely to share it with you.
There's just weird intimacy in coming into someone's space where you're I'm here to quiz you on your life and your profession and everything that makes you do what you're able to do. But yeah, it's been beautiful. So thank you. And for those of you at home listening, I will put all of the links to Lynne's work and artistry in the show notes, and obviously point to her social media channels. If you've found this episode inspiring, don't forget to follow us and subscribe for more engaging conversations. Our season is brimming with inspirational people from all walks of life, from artists to foragers to world-class chefs, economists, and creative geniuses. We're on a mission to explore and always possible what it means to live a bountiful life. And I think we've definitely heard one of those today. So thank you.
Thank you.